This is the Unstarving Musician podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. The podcast features conversations with me, indie music artists, and industry professionals, and it's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Hello, kittens. Thank you for joining me for another episode. It is a pleasure to be in your ears today. Or maybe you're checking it out on the YouTube. Maybe you're even seeing a YouTube video with me actually in it. I do that sometimes, publish these videos, uncut versions. You can check those out on the Unstarving Musician YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the show notes for you if you've never seen that. Most of the things posted there are audio only, but there are some cases where I will publish the interview with the video that we did, like the Zoom video. So those can be fun. And again, they're uncut, so they're a little different. A lot of fun. I'm drinking a second cup of coffee here. I really should keep it to one, but I love coffee. It's a ritual for me, the whole making of it. The drinking's pretty good, but the making, now that's a ritual. All right, so my guest is Peter Rand. He's a two-time offender on the podcast. He made his first appearance in episode 177. I'll put a link in the show notes to that episode. Peter co-wrote with me my latest release, New Gods Part 2, which is now available on all the popular streaming platforms, including my Bandcamp page, robonzo.bandcamp.com. And you can also find links for New Gods Part 2 on your favorite streaming platforms at robonzo.com, or you can listen to it right there. Peter is a user of the collaboration platform Kompoz, having contributed well over 800 tracks on that website, probably approaching 1,000 plus. When I signed up for Kompoz last year, his track New Gods was among the first that I heard. At the time it was keyboards only, but I found myself going back to it. I thought, I'm going to contribute to this, I like it, so I contributed a drum track via Kompoz, and eventually asking if we, Peter and I, could create a private collaboration to be published by yours truly, so we did. And New Gods Part 2 was born. Peter and I talk about the early stages of the song, the contributions made by Steve Strom and Chris Raspante and myself. Steve and Chris are the other musicians you hear. Steve on bass, and he's kind of my vocal coach for harmonies, my harmonies coach. And Chris Raspante on guitars, and he's the master engineer for the project. We talk about the cover art, which was also part of the collaboration, in that I incorporated a piece by artist William Blake, which Peter used on his original demo track within Kompoz. And I share some thoughts on releasing early demos exclusively for my Insiders community. These insiders are folks who want to specifically follow my music journey. You can learn more about that at robonzo.com/insiders. It was great to catch up with Peter. One of these days I hope to go see him in person in the UK. That would be a lot of fun. Dude's a brilliant musician. Here is me and Peter Rand. Good to see you, man.
And you, yeah. I'm just trying to say, yeah, it's a bit light. Anyway, that's fine.
You're good.
So,
it makes you look angelic.
Well, this will be the first, first time for everything.
And looks like you've been just cranking out the music too. Is that right?
Yeah, I suppose. Yes. Well, yes, the routine, as always, if I can. There's lots of other stuff that never sees the light of day, but yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm envious. I was looking over. I dropped into Kompoz in preparation, kind of look.
Oh, right.
Back when we started working on New Gods and New Gods Part 2 together, and I was just kind of looking at all the stuff you have, and I can't tell. I couldn't see if any of that stuff got how much of it got published. I'm sure some of it did. It looks like you've published more since the last time I talked to you.
There's let's think. Well, I think last time I talked to you, I just got that album out. The first one. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the moment, there's, I think, I say published, I mean, released into the wild, a bit like this in New Gods, apart from being on Kompoz. I've got a couple of things on the go at the moment, which one of which is a second lot of songs, and then with various people singing, and then there's an instrumental album, possibly sometime in sort of proggy, and also just started today another proggy type of thing with people from Kompoz. So whether anything comes of them, it's always a bit of a lottery, but you never know.
Oh yeah, well, there's a lot of cool stuff there for sure. Anyway, whether it is or not, and you've done so much. I was kind of looking like, oh, I wonder if our collaboration is in. I'm doing this because you had like a feed of like song after song after song of like showcase tunes and things that you've done. And I was wondering if ours
actually changed that for years. So I should have done the show on Kompoz, that one. Yeah. I started off changing that all the time, but once it got, I just thought, oh well, it's too much hassle. And then of course, if you showcase that, from the point of view of diplomacy, if you showcase particular songs and move others off the showcase, well, other people that you, well, what's happened to my one then?
Yeah.
So
wow. Okay. So there's a lot of old dated stuff there. And I talked to our friend at Kompoz. I'm blanking on his first name, the founder. Raf, thank you. I was thinking it's kind of like Rand, but it's not Rand.
No.
Raf, he said a new, much to your chagrin, I'm sure, a new version of the web platform's coming out pretty soon. I'd asked him, I pinged him a while back to say, hey man, is there any way we can feature this thing, or like, can you help me kind of feature this thing that me and Peter did? But I didn't really hear from him. But however, I have seen him on socials because Timothy Reed was on the podcast recently. And
yes, I saw a bit of that. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
I saw all of it actually. Yes.
Yeah, that was fun
because I got a mention, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, I think he led with you. So that was cool. Well. That was very cool. Well, I'm glad you're still doing a lot. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about the track that we completed, New Gods Part 2. So I was kind of looking back at the beginning, the genesis of it, which is New Gods. Did you drop that track in there in 2020?
I'm going to have a look now at the at Kompoz, and then I'll find it. Just bear with me.
And I always tell the story while you're looking for that. I always tell the story that when I started looking into Kompoz and some of the mobile sort of iterations of what they do that other companies are doing, Kompoz was one of the very first I went into, and your track New Gods was one of the first things I encountered. And I'm like, well, I really like that. And I looked around some more, and I kept coming back to it. And I don't know if I told you this, but that's why I was finally like, I think rather than pressure myself to write something alone, I'm gonna see if he wants to do this. So thanks for.
That's the beauty of Kompoz in a way, and that you can rely on other people, hopefully, that play better than you do, to come along and make it sound a lot better. That's really the point. But it was 2020. I've just found the original. It was 2020. It just doesn't exactly. So 10 months and 22 days ago. So if you can work that out, then that's how old it is.
I'm going to write that down because I'm going to work it out in the intro. And I noticed that we had started, 10 months and 22 days ago when we spoke.
So so it's going to be, we're June now, so it's going to be August-ish.
Yeah. Well, then I didn't find it too much later because, and that's probably why, because we started, I think we started our private collaboration in early October.
All right.
And it did. And I was laughing going, God, you crank out so much stuff on there. I got this thing released, and I wasn't working on releasing it super fast because I was trying some new marketing stuff, but May 27th this year, 2021, I finally released it. And then prior to that, I was doing some stuff with Tract on their platform to get some a little bit of notice for it. But yeah, finally came out. And I also, I was really struggling with the cover art for it. I wanted to incorporate the thing that you had in your original
William Blake.
That's
what it was. Yeah.
And I had this idea for it, and in my usual fashion, I tried to do it myself, but my as much as I love playing around in Adobe Illustrator, I could not it's just too much. I would have spent hours learning how to do what I ultimately had done. So I got a little help with it. Finally decided on that. So
no, it's fine. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. And it includes a bit of William Blake in there. So the reason he was in there, well, not so much the main reason, but we went to see him just before the first lockdown back in 2020. Jane, my wife, and I went to see an exhibition of his in London.
Really?
Of his, his work in London, and that was really, really good at the Tate in London. So it was really some things I'd seen before, some were totally new. So but he was a weird and wonderful genius, very, very strange person, but yes, weird and wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't realize that that you
and
had
the
done
poet
that
as well.
Really?
Of course.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Actually,
yes.
You know what? I didn't connect the two. The name is familiar to me now all of a sudden.
Tiger Burning Bright, that one.
Yeah,
that's
wow.
him.
Yeah.
And Jerusalem, the hymn Jerusalem. There were the words to that.
I do not, but I will go look at both of them now.
Well known in this country, certainly. So so he was he was an interesting person, definitely. Yeah.
That's cool. And how was the exhibit? You enjoyed it?
It was wonderful. It was really good. I mean, stuff that I was sort of vaguely familiar with, but we were able to go and see it, sketches and things like that. Yeah, it was really good.
Wow.
Really good.
So it's not as random, like a random selection of art that you'd chosen for that. It was something that you, obviously.
It was just something I'd seen, I'd seen that, I'd seen it before, that particular painting. And I think there's a lot of, he's been used a lot on, in albums, in, bands that I think, the Straws used one of his on theirs. I think Uriah Heep probably did as well, but there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. He's he fits in very well with the prog type of thing, with all the weird and wonderful, fantastic beasts and people that there are in there. So yeah,
I definitely got that vibe when the first time I saw it for New Gods, and so that's cool. Yeah, I'm glad that we did that. I'm not, I tell everyone, as I'm sure you've read, it's a my nod to prog rock among a couple of other bands. When I definitely, you are the prog, right? Your keys are the prog aspect of it. I think the rest of it, except maybe, I don't know, maybe the bass, and the guitar kind of followed it, but the rest of it, I think it's kind of straight rock, the rest of it.
A lot of prog rock is just straight rock, actually.
Sure.
Well, I mean, it doesn't all have to be, changing the tempo every 30 seconds and, the time signatures going all that. I can't do lots of time. Most of mine are in 4/4 anyway, so yeah.
Well, speaking of time signature, I wanted to tell you, and I don't know if I shared this with you. So Chris Raspante, who played the guitars on it and did the mix and mastering.
Yeah,
he's my friend in Texas. He, like with the last one, I gave him to see if he was interested in working with me. I just gave him, I think, now I'm trying to remember, but I think I gave him probably a drum and vocal tracks on top of yours, very raw, which I'll share at some point here in the future if you're good with that, of course. But we start working on it, and he's liking it, and then he got to trying to figure out if or how he would solo in this area that I'd mentioned, and he's like, man, I'm just getting so messed up on the timing. I lose the one really quickly on where he was trying to do it. But he worked it out finally, and I thought it was kind of fun. The guy's a consummate. I know it happens to everyone sometimes. He's a consummate musician. Great, a good grasp on theory for sure. Maybe better than I realized. So it was kind of amusing for me that he went into that.
You need somebody to have because I have my theory is because my grasp on theory is very basic at best, I think. So especially when somebody asks me what chords that, I don't know.
Well, thank you for telling me what chords they were so I could share.
I had to work it out.
Wow, a labor of love.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't, some people could just say, oh, that's a C major 7th, augmented, whatever. But no, it's, I usually put them through there's a online chord analyzer or stuff like that you can use, which tells you pretty much as near as damn it what it is, and I usually do it with that because it's a lot easier than having to figure it out. That's the this one's here and that one's there, because I'm looking at a screen. I can do it if I play the keys, I can see what they are, but if you're looking at some the screen and it's like, oh, that one that's an A, that's
Yeah. I was doing that the other night. I was about to say I hope to impress some of my friends at some point when I share those more a little more widely. Maybe if I ever get to perform it live, I'll share it with some poor soul who's going to have to reproduce it. I know, and I guess the chances are better that I would do it in the U.S. And have someone play your part for you than to fly there or fly you down, which I would love to do, but maybe one of them will happen.
I think flying me down might just be a tad expensive. And then there's a rider, obviously. So
yes, exactly.
And also, I think you probably get a lot of. I'm more of a. I think I probably said last time, I'm more of a composer than a performer. So I'll probably get it all wrong.
Yeah, well, I wondered, I guess we'll see what happens if I have the opportunity to do so. But I wondered, am I going to have to hook someone up with him for some questions on Zoom or Skype?
Absolutely fine. Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, for that. Yeah. So I mean, I was on a Zoom call. When was it? The other week. We were with. Had a couple of Zoom calls. The band that I sort of. We're not really a band, but we play around every now and then playing covers of Strom songs, and we've had a couple of people in on the Zoom calls who are actually band members, so that's been interesting. That's been fun. But one of the ones we had was with a chap called Blue Weaver, who used to play keyboards with them, but also played keyboards with the Bee Gees at their height.
Yeah, I'll be darned.
I know. So he was, if you can remember Jive Talking and all the synth on that and all that stuff, that was him doing that. So, and he's got gold discs for it and everything. In fact, he showed us on his wall, remotely. So that was very interesting. That was, makes that's. But still, even he, with his, if you like, background and lots of hits, he also played with Mott the Hoople. He also played with Amen Corner, if you remember them.
Not the latter, no.
No, they were, if you like, had a pop hit back in the late 60s. But he's played with all these people, and even with his stuff, I don't think that with streaming he's not earning hardly anything, anymore. Sadly.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend of mine who was in a pretty big band, a very big band in the 90s, maybe part of the 80s. But somehow he's still doing pretty good. I think I had read a while back that artists that have, started long ago and amassed a very popular catalog, that they're actually doing okay. I think in comparison to like, my friend's band, in comparison to like the Led Zeppelins or, these bands, the Beatles or whatever, definitely not in that realm, but still pretty big. But I don't know all the other facets of his business, and I think maybe they're going to get they're going to get custody of some of their original recordings soon, which will be a whole new project for him, which will be fun. But I don't know if you'd seen. You're probably not on Twitter much, or at least I don't think you are. Really, but I'd shared a thing that Tom Jones and Mick Jagger and these other, or the Stones and a lot of other big artists were asking, was Parliament maybe, to change the laws for music artists for streaming royalties. So problem.
We'll see how it goes, because it's I've amassed an absolute fortune of $10.80 so far this year. So I'm trying not to spend it all at once.
That's pretty impressive, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I've been working with a gal, kind of a music marketing coach based out of the UK, and she could really just give a rat's ass about streaming royalties. She's kind of focused on other ways for musicians to make money, and she really built her audience online too. So like COVID was not even a thing for her. And I like asking people this question about, like, how a while back I was asking a lot, like, how important was it for you to build an audience locally before you expanded outwards? But her reply was interesting. She goes, well, it wasn't important for me because I did it all online.
Yeah. Well, everywhere's local there, isn't it? I suppose that's the whole world is your local then.
Yes,
but,
true.
But yeah, I suppose traditionally you'd want a local audience, so that when you actually had something to release, that all the people that were local would buy it, and then you'd have a bit of money, and then maybe they'd tell other people, and so on. I suppose that's how it used to work, isn't it? But
yeah, it's still a little bit of luck, but yeah, I mean, I think
yes,
selling your music was a very important part, and now you're hearing the biggest performers say, if we're not out touring, we're not making anything anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
And I heard, I hope it's true and carries some merit in the argument, but that the technology has not really kept pace with this aspect of creators,
Right.
and them being able to survive basically, or get compensated for what they do. But definitely, like in my world, talking to all the indie artists, we really talk about a lot of other strategies, different types of strategies for making money, sometimes making a genuine living, and a lot of times just really funding your art and keeping the dream alive.
Yes, that's. I mean, I'm not in it for the money, so I'm. I mean, I would be if it was there, but it's not. So
you never know,
I'll still
man.
do it whether there's money or not.
You never know when one of your tracks. And by the way, I think that New Gods Part 2 is a great candidate, but you never know when one of your tracks gets picked up for a licensing deal, and it changes everything. I hear.
Oh yes, well yes, we'll see.
So
I'm sure if anybody can do it, you can shove it along the way, can't you? You can
it's definitely it's definitely in the planning for sure. I that one has I don't know if it's true, but that one to me has, in my imagination, has a lot more potential than my first song does. But from the podcast, I learned to keep a track vocalist version of everything in my possession for exactly that. And hey, if they take a whole song with vocals and everything, great.
Yeah. Well, if somebody huge wants to take it up and run with it, I would. Off you go. Absolutely, just sign this.
Exactly. Well, on a side note, related side note, I still want to get you and I and Chris and Steve together for a chat sometime.
Okay.
I'm sorry I haven't followed up with that.
That's okay.
I was even thinking this week I should let them both know, and I just didn't make the time to do it. But I was like, I should let them both know that we're talking. Maybe one of them could pop on. But I'll still work on it. It'll be fun. I have trouble getting Steve to come on and talk with me, with him knowing that we're going to do something for the podcast. He just feels he has little to say, which is funny because the guy is, he's got a great sense of humor. He's very articulate, very well-read, probably the best, most studied musician among us that were on the track. So he would be great, but
because I'm like, we're not so much, not like that in the sense of well studied, but certainly I think, but that's why I sent you an email earlier. Do I need to prepare for this?
No, I always want these to be casual, but I was a little surprised you had asked because we'd done it before, but it has been a while. But I get people a lot of times and they're just trying to be, they're trying to eat two things. They're trying to be highly professional, or they are nervous and they just want to make sure that they know what's going to go down. But
I'm both. I'm not trying to be, definitely nervous. I'm always nervous when you do these things because it's it's just, I don't know, it's new to me I mean, obviously I've done it before with you, and I do it every week but they're people I know and every day and things like that. So but it is a strange world like this, I must admit. But I'm used to it a bit.
Well, your episode was very, very popular, by the way, that we did together.
Really? Well, yeah. It's obviously my looks.
Well, and I was looking at my stats for the podcast, and I was like, hey, the episodes I did where I asked a couple of people to interview me, maybe I can remember it was 2 or 3, so 2 episodes for sure, if they would interview me about my first release.
All right.
They were acquainted with me, and I was like, those episodes did pretty well. That's cool. So, maybe we'll have the double push or pull effect of your popularity on my podcast and people wanting to know more about the songs.
Yes, I'll drag you down, don't worry. I have no idea why that is. It's not because I was listening. I didn't have it on repeat all the time. Definitely.
Could be that Kompoz audience. I don't know.
Actually, sorry. On a serious note, yes, I think that might have helped. Because did you put it there, or did I think I might have put it there too, and I also put it on Facebook and things like that.
I had never. I mean, I mentioned I don't post the audio in Kompoz. I had never thought of doing that, although maybe I will this time.
Right. Okay.
The episode goes everywhere that you can find audio pretty much, and then I promote it on social, and Raf knows about it, and of course you know about it, and I don't know which one of you has more followers, but it looks like you guys got some attention.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't explain that. I don't know.
I think you underestimate your popularity. I've seen.
I think Timothy, he's got lots of followers, especially in Japan. By the looks of it, he's very, in the old phrase, big in Japan. He's definitely that.
Huge in Japan.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not even top on the Wirral, which is a little bit where I live. So what's it? What was it John Lennon said about Ringo Starr? He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. So
was it him that said that? That's hilarious.
I don't know, whoever it was. Yes.
Well, probably right, because Paul played quite a bit as well.
Yeah. So
he was the best drummer in the Beatles.
Yeah. So no, I mean it's all very good, and I like the fact that lots of people watched it. I'm not sure why they want to listen to me waffling on, but there you go. It's a mystery.
Well,
I'm
always pleasantly surprised when an episode does well. When I look at the ones that do, even like pretty much every time. I bet if I tell one guest, he won't be shocked. But of the other ones that have done really well, maybe a couple actually, but of the ones that have done really well, the others, like yourself, like that is so. Like I have the guy that he's been in several episodes, but he was in episode 1, and he was in episode 200 and a couple in between. But I always tell him, like, you are the most played episode for my podcast on Spotify, and he's like, that's so weird.
Yes, it's good. I mean, it's good stuff, and so you must get all these statistics, I suppose, of how many all the plays. How many episodes have you had now then?
Well, I passed 200 very recently, and I literally have about 10 that are unreleased that were previously recorded. Because of the release of New Gods Part 2, I'm gonna go ahead and just have this one will cut in line, so to speak. Okay. So this one will be out a week from tomorrow, if all goes according to plan. But I don't even. I always tell people lately that I have the luxury of not having to solicit any interviews, because I constantly have now these days publicists coming to me, and then the occasional individual band. Yeah. So
I should have got my publicist onto it, really, shouldn't I?
You really should, Peter. We need to get this track. We need to get some traction on New Gods Part 2.
Yes, I'll get my team to speak to your team, shall I?
That sounds fantastic. So some closing thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts on New Gods Part 2, the final product, especially on the guitar and bass contributions and anything else.
Yeah. Well, I think, it sounds so much, I mean, the final product, the final version, it's built up, and it's got better and better, I think. Certainly the guitar and bass have added something, which wasn't there, which was just me on the keyboard originally. That was it. And some computery drums, I think, was originally
which you couldn't find for me.
Yes.
You lost.
Yes. In fact, I opened it the other just before this Zoom, and I've got a new laptop now here, and one of the synths I had for that one I don't have anymore, so it complained at me that I was loading it, so I couldn't. I've still got the track, obviously, with the separate file, but I haven't got that synth anymore. But never mind. But yes, the whole thing started off. I was quite pleased with it in the first place, I'll be honest. I quite liked it myself, but it's with your vocals and the guitar and the bass and the mixing, obviously. it sounds really good. It sounds really good. I mean, I'd if I was doing an album, I'd be happy to have it on it. That's what I'd. There you go. That's my. You can put that on the next to the 5-star when it comes out
Yes.
in the blockbuster film.
We'll use it on a testimonial on unstarvingmusician.com. It'll be as equally impactful.
Yeah, 5.5 stars out of 3. That'd be great.
It's going on there, I promise.
But no,
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, obviously, it's me involved in the music, so I'm not going to not like it, am I? But no, it's really made it a lot better. Everybody else's editions. So,
Yeah,
yes.
I was so excited, and my wife's reaction to she kind of gets to hear the evolution of these things, obviously. But
Yeah.
her reaction when I played her was probably the final mix was fun. The other thing, I mean, I've been interested in these first 2 releases to like listen to it around some other music to just see because when you're listening to a track and it's like, well, how does this sound after I play something else I really like, in a mix.
Yeah.
And that's been good. It's been great.
All right.
And then I got added to a playlist by a gal named JJ Lovegrove, who I met in this marketing course that I mentioned. She has a playlist supporting artists on Spotify, and I was listening to it in there, and I'm like, wow, she's got some really good artists on there. And it was, of course, it was of my own contribution. I'm listening to the singing, all the singers on there, and I'm like, oh yeah, the quality of my song definitely drops because the vocals are just not as good as those. I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm doing the usual self-flagellation, but no, seriously. I mean, I that was the one time I was like, oh yeah, gives me something to strive for, so I can listen to myself next to these people and be cool with it. But I was super happy with the contributions that Steve and Chris did.
Yeah.
And I don't think I told you, but while they may not seem like a lot, the backing parts that I sang, the harmonies that I sang, Steve Strom, our bass player, he actually, I'm calling him, I don't think he knows this, but I'm calling him my vocal coach, because in both sessions that I did, he's basically writing parts on his software and sending them back to me in my own voice. But he's changing the intonations and things. And so I almost nailed all of them. One of them I left as is. I didn't get it exactly as he had sent it, but it sounded good to me. And I'm like, I'm just going to let that ride. But I'm so lucky to have him as well for that. So because
it really, I mean, as I said, it got better and better as it went on, the various versions, I think, definitely. So it was really good.
I hope, on a closing note, I hope that you are okay with it. What I just started doing with my first release was I'm kind of going back in time from the end, to the beginning with demos. So I just released only to my inside crew, if you will, and I'm happy to share it with you as well. But and when I say inside crew, people that are like subscribed to my email list. So I sent out an acoustic demo, one of the latter ones of the first release, and so I'll keep going back. I have everything from the recording on my iPhone of me, playing the guitar, initial guitar idea. Yeah. So I hope that we can do that with New Gods Part 2.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, we're happy to. All
right.
And, it's been nice to see you again and hear from you. And I think it's still the same room.
Yes, and I don't know if you've heard me complaining, but after I redid a section in the middle of New Gods Part 2 here. We had just moved here, and it's the last time I played in here because a neighbor came by to ask me to never do that again. So we're already kind of planning to move, and I'm like, okay, I gotta do this right next time and get in a space where I can play consistently.
Can't you soundproof the place or?
I could, but there's reason enough for us to go ahead and find a place that's a little more suitable.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Anyway, great to talk with you, man.
Okay, yes, and you too,
You will be the first to know when the episode's about to drop, so to speak.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
And if you're not doing so already, I'd suggest you go and watch the remainder of Denmark against Belgium.
Okay.
Which, no, don't really. It's all right. Which I was just looking at it to see what the score was, and Belgium are winning 2-1. So there we go.
Thank you for the update.
That's okay. I'll speak to you soon.
For sure, man. Right. I hope we get to do something again sometime soon.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Cheers.
Cheers,
Thanks
man.
a lot.
Are you a musician or creator looking to get your ideas out to a new audience? Have you been wanting to create a podcast but a little lost as to where to start? Check out Podcast Startup, powered by The Unstarving Musician. It's a course I've designed to give you the know-how, tools, and resources to create and market a sustainable podcast like The Unstarving Musician. Podcasting has opened many channels for my own creativity, and I'd love for you to experience the same. To learn more, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup or the show notes for this episode. This episode was powered by Bandzoogle, the easiest all-in-one professional website platform for musicians and bands. Two things that will help ensure you're in control of your music business and your fan-based community are a website and an email list. Bandzoogle can help you do both. Plus, a solid website makes you look legitimate. Serious musicians, singers, songwriters, composers, and performers know this to be true. If you don't yet have your own website, check out Bandzoogle. It was created by musicians for musicians. I use it and I love it. It's as easy to use gets, and you don't have to worry about plugin updates and security patches. Bandzoogle takes care of all that for you. The features and support are both incredible. See for yourself. Go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial and use the promo code Robonzo to get 15% off your first year. Plans start at just $8.29 a month. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code Robonzo, ROBONZO, to start your free trial today. Did you know you can help other independent artists find this podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcast or wherever you are listening to your podcast these days? It really does help, so I hope you will consider it. The Unstarving Musician podcast is made possible through the support and generosity of listeners like you. One of the easiest ways to support the podcast, if you're a musician, is to join the Unstarving Musician community, which you can do at, you guessed it, unstarvingmusician.com. In joining the community, you get tips and insights you can use in your music journey that comes not only from me and my years of experience, but also from the hundreds of other musicians that I speak to as part of the Unstarving Musician project and podcast. Plus, you'll get a free copy of my Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs ebook, the official version, and that's all for free just for being part of the community. You can learn about other ways of offering support by visiting the Unstarving Musician crowd sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. And if you have feedback, please go to unstarvingmusician.com to get all my contact info. You can text me, call me, email me, leave a voice message right there on that page. Just go down to the bottom of the page and you'll find everything you need to know. I really would love to hear any of your comments, suggestions, questions, whatever you've got. And you can find links to just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. All right, I'm peacing out. Thank you for listening and sharing with your musician friends and fellow indie music bands. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.